Take that right turn once in a while and see where it leads you. You might be surprised what adventures await you. Thank you so much.
Let me say this real quickly. I definitely need to say this. I've been blessed to officiate for 27 years. I want to get some more years in, and those of you who officiate, you know, officials got bad knees, so I don't want to keep getting up and down. So I'm just going to read these next three, and they're going to come in their own way and give tribute to Ray Lutz. Gray Burks is going to come, Mark Van Gamper is going to come, and Rick Rubin is going to come. Give them a big hand of celebration as they come.
So my journey in officiating started back in 1986, and I saw an ad in the paper. Do you want to become a basketball official? Why not? I love basketball. And so I went to some rules classes that were taught by Koi Daddy and Jim King. And that should be funny in itself, Jim King teaching rules. And they did a great job. So I went through, took the test, passed, and started going to association meetings. And my first game was coming up, and it was going to be on December 13th, 1986. And I asked Kinger, I said, hey, Jim, I got this game at Rampart, a couple of freshman games. I don't know if we're doing anything. He had said at one time, let me know if you have a game, I'll come watch. So I took him up on it. I don't think he really wanted me to, but I said, hey, Kinger, can you come watch? He says, yeah, I got a game up in Denver that day. I'll see if I can come. I'll see if I can bring Goofy along with me. And I thought, wow, this is cool. This guy knows Disney characters. He's got a personal relationship with them. And so that's how I met Ray Lutz. He was Goofy. Indeed, right? Yeah. And like a lot of young officials that have met him, he was very encouraging, and he's a big reason why I kept officiating for 32 years so far. And it's developed into a relationship that I've cherished. We have some shared similarities. We're both from Iowa. He grew up in Shenandoah down in southwestern Iowa. I grew up in Mason City up in north central Iowa. We both went to the University of Northern Iowa, but just a small correction, he did not graduate from the University of Northern Iowa. He graduated from the State College of Iowa a few years before me. It used to be known as the Iowa State Teachers College. You probably saw some pictures of him with his Iowa State Teachers College basketball uniform on. And then it transitioned into the State College of Iowa, which is what he graduated from. I just want to make sure you know that he's a little bit older than I am. But when he was there, he was a basketball player at the college level and a track athlete at the college level. And one thing that's pretty interesting, now this came from him, so you always have to question how much of it is truth and how much is it Ray. But he says that he played in a 5-overtime basketball game where he played every minute of the game, which back then probably was a record, and I think that was kind of an outstanding feat. But when I think about Ray, I think about relationship. For me, he had a lot of roles. He was a mentor, basketball officiating mentor. My dad passed away in 1992. He became a father mentor to me. In pulling people's legs, he became a big brother. And he became a best friend. Now I know all of you have probably had some, or maybe all of these same relationships with Ray, and they're to be cherished. And it's the value he placed with human existence that I think was the neat thing. On the morning that he passed away, Aunt Nancy gave me a call. And we were talking, and she talked about the school had contacted contacted her and they said, what can we do? Anything we can do. And she said, I'm going to need a gym. Because the gym was his temple, and it certainly was. And the influence he's had in gymnasiums over the year has just been incredible. And when I think of Ray, I just think of him as a man of great influence. He used to say to me, I am open, Ray Lutz, I'm open to influence. And what he meant by that is he wouldn't know what you thought about different things. He wouldn't know, pros and cons and where there were things that he needed to change in his own thinking. It's one of the reasons he was a great officiating maverick. And he would challenge you to challenge your own beliefs to see if they were true or if they needed to be tweaked. He's influenced thousands of officials. That's how I know him. But I know he's challenged thousands. He's influenced thousands of other people in other ways, certainly through his teaching. If any of you got a chance to look at the Facebook page that Torri created for Memories of Ray Lutz, the number of students that found that, his previous students in PE or adapted PE, incredible stories. He had great influence on waitresses. This pocket would be much larger if it wasn't for Ray Lutz, because he pretty much peer pressured us all into tips that were, well, we were trying to put people through college apparently. So it had influence on hundreds of thousands of kids through, whether it was through teaching or through his presence on the basketball court or through mentoring other officials. Looking back at Chassa records, he worked over 2,400 varsity contests, both in football and basketball, probably over 1,000 sub-varsity contests, over 500 playoff games, track and field. They claim he worked 6 football and 12 basketball championships. I think they might have missed a couple. But I got a chance to go back into the Chassa archives and look at all the stats, and I was able to tally up all the fouls he called in both football and basketball. And it came out that he called 63,584 fouls, 36,733 violations. So that's a total of 100,587 calls. And we were further able to ascertain that 219 of them were correct. I stole that from him. Another place he had great influence was for all the years that he was, I don't know all the years that he was a teacher, but for many years, he worked for J.J. Clippus out at the shuffleboard facility. J.J. was his supervisor, not you, right? You're not going to claim that? Okay, right. Somebody was his supervisor, we'll find out. But if you ever had a chance to see him down there, and there's a clip of it on this Facebook page, of seeing him just interact with the people there and the customer service, but just the interest in strangers and to make them feel wanted and special was amazing. He did this at noon. And then he would take a break, which mostly he would go mow people's yards and do errands and all kinds of things like that. He'd be back in the evenings, and that's when he got a lot of his tourists. And he would teach them to play shuffleboard, which is actually a great game when Ray Lutz teaches you how to play. And I can remember him, I was down there one time visiting him, and there were a couple, a young lady and a young man, up against the wrought iron fences, kind of peeking into this shuffleboard facility down in Acacia Park. He says, come on in. I can teach anybody. Come on in. You're going to have fun. It'll be great. Where are you from? And they said, Texas. And he said, oh. Well, I can probably teach you too. But the way he handled people was just amazing, which is one of the reasons he was a great official. And some of the coaches here probably could attest to that. When they would get upset, he had ways of calming them down, and I think they had a great trust in Ray when he was on the court. Here's another place where I witnessed him having great influence on people and just being so caring. Before he married Aunt Nancy, he lived in a nice little house over on the west side of 36th Street, on the west side of Colorado Springs. And he had a neighbor named Mr. Ism. Mr. Izzo was a little Italian man, about this big. And one day Ray was in his house and he had a knock at his door. And he comes to the door and there is a Colorado Springs Police Department officer there. And the officer says, "Are you Ray Lutz?" "Well, yes, I am." "Your neighbor claims that you have stolen his car. Is that right?" Ray said, "Well, let's find out about that." And they step out the door, and Mr. Izzo is up on his top step, and he's looking down. "That's the son of a biscuit that stole my car!" He's yelling at the cop. And the cop's looking at Ray. And Ray looks at the cop, and he says, "Officer, have you looked in the garage?" "No." "Let's look in the garage." So they walk over, and Mr. Izzo, I don't know, has a button or whatever, they open the garage door, and there is Mr. Izzo's car. And the cop looks up to Mr. Izzo and says, "Your car is here, sir." "I know the car is there, but he has my keys and he won't give them to me." The cop looks at Ray and says, "Is that right?" "Well," and Ray talks to the officer and says, "Well, how about if you ask Mr. Izzo if he could show you his driver's license?" See, Mr. Izzo was pretty old and was no longer allowed to drive, even though he wanted to. And so the officer looks up at Mr. Izzo and says, "Can I see your license, sir?" That son of a biscuit. He went storming back into the house, and the cop never saw him again. But my point is that Ray was looking out for Mr. Izzo. And I can tell you that there were many times I would give Ray a call and I said, "Hey, you got time to meet?" And he'd say, "I'm out with Mr. Izzo grocery shopping right now. I'm out with Mr. Izzo at the doctor." And Mr. Izzo was not the only one who received Ray's love in that way. So just a couple more things. I've heard Ray be referred to as a legend, but to me that word is too small, too insubstantial to describe Ray. His influence is just too big, I guess, in what he's done, what he did in his life. And I reflected after his passing how greatly much I will miss his influence. But I look out here and see all of you, and I know his influence will endure. And I have one last task here. When we met with Aunt Nancy and Torri, trying to plan for this, one of the people we really wanted to have speak was Ross McCaskill. Some of you know Ross. He's a long-time baseball, he's retired now, but baseball and football official. And where Ray was kind of the revered one, I think Ross was probably kind of our yogi in football. He's quite wise, and we would always look forward to once a year when Ross would address the Football Officials Association as Mr. Rogers from PBS days, right? Put on the coat, he would change it to his coat with stripes. Anyway, football officials will relate to that. And he wrote a few words that Nancy asked me to share with you. So this is from Ross McCaskill, my friend Ray. I first met Ray Lutz in the fall of 1975 when I attended my first meeting of the Colorado Springs High School football officials. He was seated in the back of the amphitheater classroom of Mitchell High School, where he almost always sat. As a new official in Colorado, I was an observer, trying to figure out how things worked. At this first meeting, and every subsequent one for the next 35 years, I was struck by the tenor and the depth of the comments, observations, and questions from Ray. While I was simply trying to figure out the new rules and pass the required test, here was a man who was talking about the reasons behind the rules, thinking aloud about new ways of improving our mechanics. He used phrases like facilitating the game, so coaches and players and fans could more fully realize the reason they enjoyed being a part of the sport they loved. Ray would confuse me sometimes. While I thought we should all do things the same way, he would experiment with officials' placement on the field and where they should be looking during different game situations. He would talk about topics like multiple lines to game, advantage, disadvantage, angle versus proximity, and the intent of the rules. I guess what Ray did, more than any other official I knew, was he thought about why we did things. And if it did not make sense, he urged us to try to modify it. Ray was a wondering man. He thought about many things, not just officiating. He thought about life and people. Many were drawn to him, including me, not because he was a gifted official, but because he was a caring, interesting, charismatic, and talented man. Ray loved people. He loved to talk to fellow officials, coaches, parents, school custodians, kids on the field, parents, ranchers in eastern Colorado, waitresses in restaurants. He always showed an interest, and while Ray certainly knew how to discriminate between superb, average, mediocre officials, I always thought he believed that if people were trying to improve, then we were doing the best we could. Ray most certainly could have officiated at the college level. He's talking about football now. He did officiate at the college level in basketball. Ray most certainly could have officiated at the college level. Many of you, he had selfishly mentored, watched move up the ladder and perform at the highest levels. He was proud of you. And I watched when you would come home and still pick his brain about how to do things, that he would listen and as always ask you, why do you do it that way? But Ray was a high school guy. I think it must have been something to do with all that high school sports meant to him growing up in a small town in Iowa. But he also believed in the value of high school sports and how it shaped young people and helped them not just to excel, but to belong and about becoming part of something larger than oneself. He admired coaches with whom many officials enjoy an adversarial appreciation because of the enormous sacrifice of time and the energy they invest in young people. He once told me that good coaches always make a difference in the teams they coach. He believed in the values of high school athletics and activities. And I sometimes wondered that he never strayed too far because he seemed he might lose that certain special quality that only comes when kids are involved. Ray would ask about us about our goals and dreams, our backgrounds, jobs, and families. He would ask questions more than he offered advice. He loved those kids in his adaptive PE classes. He loved the men he had lunch with every week. But most of all, Ray loved you, Nancy. He loved you, Torri. And he loved you, Quinn, Elise, Lainey, and Cooper. Ray was interesting to be around. He had lots of thoughts on lots of subjects. He was a pondering man, I do believe. I never really talked much with Ray about issues of faith. I used to think that something he experienced about traditional organized religion must have put him off sometime long ago. But he never diminished the faith held by his friends. I do believe that my friend Ray was a spiritual man because at his core, he saw the spark of the divine in each one of us. For me, the 19th century English poet, Leigh Hunt, described Ray in his poem Abu Ben Adem. I pray thee, then, write me as one that loves his fellow men, the angel wrote and vanished. The next night it came again with a great wakening light, and should the names whom love of God had blessed, and lo, Ben Adem's name led all the rest. Ray always had an unshakable insistence that a football official ought always to be standing on the goal line, ahead of the ball carrier, to ensure the ball crossed the plane of the goal line. And so, with apologies to my Methodist and Baptist friends, from this somewhat liberal-minded Presbyterian, who does not quite hold with the absolute requirement to be born again, I will offer this. Our friend Ray has beaten us to the goal line. Except instead of upraised arms signaling touchdown, his arms are wide open toward each of you, saying, welcome home, brothers and sisters. I've been waiting for you. Welcome home. Well done, Raymond, my old friend. Well done.
I wanted to go first because I didn't want to have to follow that. My name is Greg Burks, and I'm a Ray Lutz guy. Didn't you always feel better after you spent time with Ray? It gets easier after I get over the Ray part. I start telling you bad stories about it. Ross alludes to it there, and the reason is, whenever you were with Ray, what you talked about was you. He never talked about him. He talked about you. How's your family? How's your job? How'd that game go? How'd you deal with Coach McKiernan? He had the same passion for everything that he did. Officiating, education, family, everything he did, he had passion. I've known Ray a long time. First time I met Ray Lutz, I was 12 years old. I had volunteered to be a counselor at camp for children and adults with developmental disabilities. Now, that sounds really good, but the reason I did it is I was 13 and my best friend and I figured out we were the only two guys that volunteered. There was about 200 girls that volunteered to go, so we volunteered. So we got selected, and it turned out that the director of this camp at Valparaiso was Ray Lutz, and that was the first time I met Ray Lutz. And I have this image of this car pulling up, and this child basically being pushed out. And this child had a leash on, and they like drugged this child to Ray. Now, through the entire week at Valparaiso, I never knew that Ray was joking. So I don't know how many things I did that I really didn't need to do, because at that point, I didn't know when he was telling the truth and when he, as Nancy alluded to, later on in my life when his lips were moving, he was lying. But I watched him take that child, and when the parents came and picked him up, that child stood up and walked into the car. And I remember thinking, who is this guy? Who is this man? My next recollection of Ray is him refereeing my basketball games and saying things that referees weren't supposed to say. That wasn't very gentlemanly like. What? As fate would have it, I meet Ray when I start refereeing. I came back to Colorado Springs from college and started umpiring baseball. All of my friends were coaches. And I didn't have time to coach. And so I started refereeing, and the first guy I run into was Ray Lutz. And I brought up Valparaiso, and the next thing I know, I'm at Ray Lutz's heel, if you will, for the next 3 years, studying football and basketball. And what Ray is, because he's weird. Ray Lutz has some of the most mixed up views on life of anyone I've ever heard. The hardest part for me is which stories to tell you. So I'm going to invoke the locker room rule. There's a lot of locker room stories that I can't tell you. And they're the best stories. I kid you not, these are the best stories. They highlight Ray's sense of humor. I truly have never said this publicly. The reason Ray was so good with coaches is because he was a special ed teacher. Along with the locker room stories, I cannot help but be reminded of letters to the editor that Ray would write to various magazines in the names of other officials. If you can catch me sometime alone, I'll tell you about being in Glenwood Springs in a locker room with about 15 Japanese men. If Saturday Night Live could get film of this. But underneath all of that were road trips with Ray. Ray never drove. For those of you that ever refereed with Ray, he drove once, and you never let him drive. I came back from Wyoming with Ray once, and it took 4 days. It was the road less traveled at 35 miles an hour. I didn't want to talk last because I was afraid everybody would steal my thunder. Mark touched on shuffleboard, and he's right. JJ ran our division and was technically his boss, but I got to actually supervise it a little bit. And he was teaching shuffleboard. He could make in the kitchen, and we had business people down there from judges and lawyers and all walks of life that were suddenly in love with shuffleboard. But here's the weird part of Ray Lutz that I love the most. I got a letter from this couple that changed their vacation plans and drove through Colorado Springs from Illinois so they could stop and see Ray Lutz. Because Ray had taken pictures of himself and hung them up in the hallway, and it listed Rookie of the Year, Florida Tour, Money Winner Champion, Shuffleboard Player of the Year. These people came to meet the finest professional in shuffleboard and changed their vacation to do that. Only Ray could get away with that with a straight face. But I also saw Ray in the afternoon, some of those times, bring blind children there to play shuffleboard. And it was amazing. He would stand and snap his fingers where the disc should go. And if they got good, he started heckling them. I'll never forget. I had pictures of my daughter. They're naked pictures. Dr. Stroke? That's Ray Lutz in a nutshell. Ray, I guess I'll just put this under uniqueness. These are quick thoughts about Ray that I had to add. He went to a Cubs and Rockies games with Deb and I one time. He was a Cubs fan, so we invited him. We rode the train up. He had his Cubs stuff on. He was heckling every Rockies fan on the way up. He had headphones on so he could listen to the game on KOA, and he had to share it with the entire stadium. And I'm like, shut up, Ray. We know it's ball 2 and it's outside. But he had to go on, and he's keeping score. Do you know how to keep score? Yeah, I was a baseball coach. I know how to keep score. But what I remember in that is him taking out his glasses. Now, I've seen this trick a million times and it's been alluded to, but my wife hadn't yet. And he takes his glasses out, and there's the price tag right there on his glasses. And he looks at Deb and says, "Do you like my glasses?" And she kind of looks at his glasses like, does he know the price tag? And then he kind of just looks at it. And then he said, you know, for this trip, I got some special boots. And he pulled his pant leg up, and there's the price tag hanging from the boots. And I remember Deb asking me afterwards, "Is there something wrong with it?" Now, about a week later, Ray has jewelry for Deb to say thank you for taking on that trip. I'll never forget that baseball game for as long as I live. I coached high school baseball for a few years, and the best tip I ever got was from Brittany. And his tip was, find out what the custodian drinks and make sure he always has plenty of it. And at the time I thought, what's he talking about? My locker rooms were always open, the field was always drugged, the things that needed to happen, happened. Ray always thought of things from the bottom up. Always from the bottom up, and taking care of those folks that sometimes we tend to forget about, but not Ray. He started from the bottom up. John Caricato and I used to have a discussion about who Ray was on TV or the movies, and for a long time, we thought he was Kramer from Seinfeld. Can't you see Ray coming screaming in with his hair on fire just to make that entrance? Boom. I think he was Gandalf. I served on more committees that I really didn't want to serve on because Ray Lutz, as Ross alluded to, was in the corner of that room and was making sure the right things happened for Colorado Springs officiating. And he talked you into doing things that you really didn't want to do. And the next thing, we were doing what Ray Lutz wanted. And what was funny is everybody else thought we were voting on stuff and things were happening. Ray ran that association for as long as I was there. And it was a good thing, because he always started from the bottom up. I'm going to talk a little bit about officiating, because it says, I think most of you know, that's near and dear to my heart. It's a big part of my life. It has been for a long time. The success I've had is because I was fortunate enough to have Ray at the beginning, to teach me that it's not about just getting fouls right or inbounds or out of bounds, but why we do this. Advantage, disadvantage, ultimately being guardians of the game. Now, I remember doing a game with Ray, and it was small college. It was about the fourth game I had done with him, and Coach was always yelling at me, not at Ray. And I figured it was age. I figured it was because he was veteran and I was young. But I asked him one time, how come that guy came after him right from the beginning? He said, well, I probably should have told you this a while ago. But he says, I always go up to the coach and ask him, is St. John's Church there? Because there's always a St. John Church in every community. And he'll say, yes, how do you know? And he says, well, I grew up there. That's Ray Lutz. We were at CC and we had a battle going on. We had trouble controlling the game. It was kind of ugly. Whistle blows and out comes Ray. Number 49, 2 minutes, cross check. In a basketball game. The entire gym stops. The bench falls over. They were all hockey people. They got it. They all fall over laughing. That team from Nebraska didn't know what hit them. I remember being at Whitefield High School to do a football scrimmage before the season started for Coach Hartman. And many of you know Coach Hartman, famous coach in Colorado Springs area, but kind of a tough guy. We had a false start. Somebody threw a flag, and Hartman went ballistic. That how could we only have one flag? It was obvious. What are the rest of you yo-yos doing out there? As